Out of one of the most brutal wars in European history, the 30 Years' War, a desperate question emerged. How do we stop this from ever happening again? But, this isn't just a story about destruction. It's really about the birth of two powerful and kind of opposing ideas. Ideas designed to pull humanity back from the absolute brink. Back in the 17th century, people had this grim saying, "In war, laws are silent." Basically, once the cannons started firing, the law books might as well have been closed. But there was one guy, a legal thinker named Hugo Grotius, who heard that and thought, no way, that is completely unacceptable. And that really gets to the core question of our whole explainer here. Must they be silent? Can we, as human beings, actually put guardrails on conflict? This question became desperately urgent during a war that honestly seemed to have no rules at all. I mean, the 30 Years' War wasn't just armies fighting armies. It was a total societal collapse. Any rules of engagement just disintegrated. Civilians were targets, entire cities were just obliterated, and a whole generation grew up knowing nothing but violence. This kind of chaos absolutely demanded an answer.
So how do you stop the slaughter? Well, we're going to look at two brilliant minds who wrestled with this exact problem. They saw the same catastrophe, but came away with two very different and, I think, equally powerful solutions.
And this slide just lays out the contrast perfectly. On one side, you've got Hugo Grotius, a legal scholar writing during the war. He was right there, inside the storm. His answer? We need universal rules. And on the other side, you've got the writer Friedrich Schiller, looking back more than a century later. His answer was totally different. We need a moral memory. So it's law versus memory. Let's start with the man who wanted rules. Okay, first up is Hugo Grotius. Picture this. In the middle of this absolute bloody chaos, he proposes something truly radical, a system of law that could bind all nations, even as they were actively trying to destroy each other. Now, don't picture Grotius as some dusty academic. This guy was a child prodigy, one of Europe's top legal minds, and a man of real principle. He was even imprisoned for his beliefs. He actually escaped in a chest of books, which is just an incredible story. This was someone who believed in the power of ideas enough to risk absolutely everything for them. So what was his huge idea? Well, it's what we now call international law. He basically argued that nations, just like individual people, are bound by a higher moral law. He laid this all out in his groundbreaking book, The Rights of War and Peace, and because of that, he's known as the father of international law. Now listen to where Grotius believed this law came from. As he says right here, it was from nature herself. He argued this wasn't some law handed down by a king or a particular church. It was discovered through right reason and of conscience, universal principles that anyone, anywhere could access.
And you have to understand, in the 17th century, this was an absolutely explosive idea. It meant that no king, no sovereign, was above the law. It meant these rules applied to everyone, Christian and non-Christian nations alike. It was a direct challenge to the age-old idea that might makes right.
Okay, so let's jump forward about 150 years to our second witness, Friedrich Schiller. He looked back at that same horrible war, but came up with a completely different solution. He wasn't really interested in new laws. He was interested in the power of memory, in history itself acting as a kind of moral witness.
You've probably heard Schiller's work without even realizing it. He's the guy who wrote the poem that Beethoven turned into the Ode to Joy. As an Enlightenment historian, he believed that studying the past wasn't just about memorizing dates and battles, it was about learning crucial moral lessons for our own future.
So here's the crucial point. Schiller's goal was totally different from Grotius's. He wasn't trying to write a rule book. He wanted to write a history so vivid, so unflinching, that it would be a permanent warning. He wanted to make sure we never, ever forgot the real human price of a war without rules. And he did not hold back. To show this cost, he described the sack of Magdeburg, the single worst atrocity of the entire war. I mean, his description is just brutal and direct. He forces you, the reader, to confront the horror, the unbelievable speed with which an entire city was just wiped from the face of the earth. Schiller uses these powerful words, right? But then he hits you with the cold, hard reality. 25,000 people. That's how many were killed in a single day. It's a number so huge it's almost impossible to comprehend, but Schiller forces us to try.
But here's what makes Schiller such a good historian. He wasn't just writing propaganda. In this fascinating little detail, he points out that even the conquering general, Tilly, wept when he saw the destruction his own army had caused. It's a powerful reminder that the horror of war consumes everyone, even its commanders.
So we've got these two powerful responses to the same catastrophe. One is based on reason and law, the other on history and memory. So how do they fit together?
This slide just sums it up perfectly. Grotius uses the tools of reason and law. His purpose? To bind nations with rules right now, in the present. Schiller uses the tools of history and memory to warn nations in the future. You see? One is a guardrail, the other is a powerful cautionary tale. Ultimately, it really comes down to this. Grotius gives us the rules. It's the logic of the mind. Schiller gives us the reasons. That's the visceral memory of the heart. And you really need both to build a more humane world. It's the same combination we see today, in the legal framework of the Geneva Conventions, and in the solemn warnings of our war memorials.
And that leaves us with a question for today. For right now, as we look at all the conflicts around the world, which pillar do you think we need to strengthen more? Is our problem a lack of good laws, or is it a failure to truly remember the cost of breaking them? Definitely something to think about.